You are listening to The Writer's Block. I am horror author James Hershey Jr. It's time for a truth bomb.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Writer's Block. I am your host, James Hershey Jr., and tonight's episode is going to be an interesting one. This was supposed to be another one of those mystery shows, the ones where you have multiple conspiracy theories and we're trying to get to the bottom of shit and figure out exactly what happened. And this is one of those cool occasions where in doing the research I kind of solved a mystery. So there's no longer any kind of mystery about whether it's true or not. Now we know it's true. So it's just talking about what actually happened. So the topic, which I'm sure a lot of you already know because you've been messaging me that you want to hear this show, is did Hitler survive World War II? And the answer to that question, my friends, is yes, he absolutely did. First of all, let's go over the history that we know, or that we were taught at least in school, what the story has been that we were supposed to believe all these years. According to the history, as World War II is drawing to a close, Hitler is in his bunker with his old lady, Eva Braun, and they are in Berlin in the bunker, just kind of hanging out, doing the war thing. And the United States troops and Allied troops, Russians, United States, started making their way into Berlin and attacking them and bombing and all that kind of stuff. And as they're making their way in, we are told that Hitler shot himself in the head. Well, first he shot his old lady Eva Braun in the head, then he shot himself in the head and died. Or took poison, depending on who you listen to. Or one bit. And then they get into the bunker and they find the bodies. And voila, Hitler's dead. That's what we're told. Then, as the years go on, then it's told they were actually dragged out of the bunker, and the Germans tried to burn the bodies in the street so that Hitler's body would not fall into Allied hands. So that is why the bodies were burnt. So that's what we were told then. So now we know the actual story of what happened. Okay? Before we get to what Hitler did, let's stick with the Allied troops for a second. Let's stick with the Russians, because the Russians were the ones that found the bodies, okay? It's April 30th, 1945, and the Russians and the United States military are making their way into Berlin. They're fighting the German troops as they go, and they're making their way in. So they want to find Hitler desperately. So once they have conquered the city and Berlin has fallen, which means that Germany has lost the war, then they begin trying to search for Adolf Hitler, because that was really the prize that everybody wanted. So the Russians are looking for Hitler. The Americans have not yet made it to the center of Berlin. They're still on the outskirts, making their way in. So the Russians have a head start here. So they're desperately trying to find the body of Adolf Hitler, either alive or dead, before the Americans do. So they're looking and they're asking, and nobody knows where Hitler is, supposedly. Of course, they wouldn't really tell the Russian troops anyway, would they? But anyway, they're looking and they can't find him, They find a bunch of dead bodies, and each time they have somebody they think might be Hitler, they grab the person and they check it out, and then they find out that's not Hitler. So there was multiple people that they were pretty sure were Hitler, and then it turned out that it wasn't Hitler. So finally the Russian troops were getting very desperate. So they happened to see something sticking out of a pile of muck and rubble in a ditch where there had been an explosion and a fire. So they dig up this thing that they see, and it turns out to be a foot. And it's attached to a body, and there's another body laying beside it. Those two bodies were burnt beyond all recognition. and they couldn't tell who the hell they were. They could have been Joe the baker. They could have been, Pepe the landscaping guy. They could have been anybody. But they decide, since the Americans are almost there,
Sorry,
and Hitler is obviously not in Berlin.
You said Pepe the lawn guy. You said Pepe the lawn guy. Sorry, I couldn't hold that. I can't picture somebody named Pepe in Germany. Sorry, I had to laugh.
They want to have. They see that he's not in Berlin anymore. So either he has escaped, or he is dead somewhere and they can't find him. So what they decide to do is to take those two bodies that they found and say that it's Hitler. So they take them back with the other Russian troops, and they perform autopsies on these two burnt-up bodies. They have no way to definitively prove that it's Hitler or not. So what they do is they track down one of Hitler's dentists, one of the people that had worked on Hitler's teeth. And they said, we need to know what Hitler's teeth look like so we can identify this body as Hitler. So, according to the Russian story, the dentist made a drawing of what Hitler's teeth looked like and what all the different work that had been done on Hitler's teeth, and presented the Russians with that. Subsequent interviews had never found this dentist. They don't know who he was because he was never named. So there's a very good likelihood that it never happened. That they just basically made a drawing of the dental records of the person that they found in the ditch and claimed it was Hitler. So then they come out, by this point, the Americans had already reached the center of Berlin a while ago, but they are told that the Russians have Hitler's body. And since we were allies at the time, we allowed the Russian doctors to do the autopsies and figure out what was going on. So then the Russians claim that they have Hitler, and they take the body, and they leave with it. They take it away. And we never see it again, ever, to this day. That body, that they claim to be Hitler, was never identified by United States personnel at all, by anybody from our country. Now, recently, we were given samples of the tissue of that body, which we ran DNA testing on. And lo and behold, not Hitler, not Eva Braun. The DNA from those two bodies that the Russians claimed were Hitler and Eva Braun did not match the samples that we had on record for Hitler. So we know that those bodies were not Hitler and Eva Braun. It was not true. Now, if the Russians lied about it, or whether they thought they had Hitler and they just didn't, we didn't know. We just knew that it wasn't Hitler. Now, evidence has come out in the very recent future that says that Adolf Hitler escaped Berlin before the fall of Berlin, when the troops were making their way towards the city, and he knew it was all lost. They jumped in a car and they took off to an airfield where the German soldiers and Germany basically, they had several captured British planes. Excuse me, and they took these British warplanes and they loaded Hitler and Eva Braun on it and some other high-ranking people, and they flew out of Berlin. They flew right past some of the Allied planes and soldiers, actually, and they didn't know who they were because they were in British planes. So they flew a little ways and they landed, and they met up with U-boats, and they took Hitler and they took Eva Braun and they loaded him onto U-530, which was a German submarine, and off they went. That submarine landed right off the coast of Argentina, and that is where Hitler spent the rest of his days. He lived in a mansion that was built by German immigrants that had left Germany and went to Argentina before the war was over. They had kind of set this up because they knew it was going badly. So they had people in place. And he built and lived in a mansion at the foot of the Andes Mountains until the day that he died. Him and his old lady Eva Braun did. Now, we know this because they have released, through the Freedom of Information Act, certain FBI documents. I'm looking at one right now in front of me. It is file number 105-410. And basically what it's talking about is the fact that Hitler is alive and well and living in Argentina. It is from the LA office of the FBI. Now, the FBI investigated this, and they actually had a team in place in Argentina to find out whether Hitler was there and to monitor his movements. And sure enough, he was there, and they did not tell anybody about it. They told the government, actually, our government, but they did not alert the public. We did not know that Hitler was still alive. The most surprising and disturbing part of this whole thing is not that Hitler survived World War II, because of course Hitler was going to survive World War II. You know what I mean? What kind of idiot sits in a bunker when he knows his city is falling around him? If he has a chance to get out, he's going to get out. So it doesn't surprise me that Hitler made a run for it. What does surprise me, however, is that our government knew that Hitler was not dead. Our government knew where Hitler was. And not only did they not go get him and not tell anybody, but they actually worked to help cover up the fact that he was still alive. Now, why they did that, I do not know. I know that after World War II, a lot of the German scientists came over here to our country. They were given positions in the government, and a lot of their research that they had been doing on different things was utilized by our government to make weaponry and to make all kinds of things that to help our technology for our country, to make us the leader in technology of the world. Whether or not Hitler told them where to find these people and convince these people to help our government in exchange for our government's protection, or whether it was just another case of a complete clusterfuck by a bureaucracy, I don't know. I don't have documentation to tell you, and it could be anything, really. Honestly, nothing surprises me anymore about our government, about the underhanded and dirty stuff that they do. So, like I said, this show was going to be like talking about all the different conspiracy theories about what had happened to Hitler and everything like that. But in doing research for this show, because I knew a lot of them myself already, because I'm into this kind of stuff, but when I really started digging deep to find all the evidence I could possibly find to bring you guys, that's when I came across the FBI report, which led to other things, and that's when basically I found out that that it wasn't just a conspiracy theory, that Hitler was actually, in fact, alive and well. So that's basically the story of what happened with Hitler. Now, it's a strange thing to think about that everybody vilifies Hitler, okay? And rightly so. I'm not saying they shouldn't. Shit, he's an evil bastard. I'm not saying he's not. But everybody vilifies Hitler so much, and he is one of the most evil people in our time, definitely, in like the last century or two. And to think that basically he was just let go, you know? Even if he escaped, and they didn't know he was escaping at the time, they knew where he went. They knew where he was. And they did nothing, you know? And that just, I don't know, that kind of bothers me. It kind of sticks in my craw a little bit, as we say. And I just don't understand how you could let somebody like that go. And it seems to me that this had to be more than just the United States of America covering this up. This had to be the United States. It had to be England. It had to be Russia. It had to be Germany. And it had to be Argentina. Maybe more countries, but definitely those. because the English and the Russians claimed they had Hitler, had his body, and they were lying. And they didn't let on that they knew any different. And the British were involved in our little allied force, and they concurred with the story that he committed suicide in the bunker, even though there was no evidence of it. So there was collusion there.
And France. Don't forget France.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that had to work together. This had to be a grand conspiracy. You know what I mean? In terms of how to keep this quiet for the rest of the world, because you have to remember at this time, Hitler is the devil on earth, basically. You know, everybody wants this guy dead. And if they would have known that he escaped, there would have been a national fervor to go get him. I mean, it wouldn't have been, okay, well, no worries. You know, it would have been, I don't care if you got to invade Argentina, you go get that bastard, you know?
It would have been like Osama bin Laden.
Or even worse, because, I mean,
yeah.
Hitler was slaughtering millions, you know?
I forget the final count, but it was well over 2 million.
What I wonder is, once this news becomes widespread, what is the reaction going to be by the public? And what is especially the reaction going to be among the Jewish populations of the world? Is it one of those things where it was so long ago now that people are just like, oh, well, that's interesting, but who cares? You know? Or will there really be an uproar about this? What do you think?
I can tell you, my fiance is Jewish. Her family's Jewish. Her grandmother survived the Holocaust, had the number tattooed on her. And my grandfather fought in World War II to help just the atrocity that was happening. I can honestly tell you from them, they won't even buy a Volkswagen because it's German. So I highly doubt any Jewish person or any normal human being is going to say, oh, well, it was just so long. I mean, me personally, I'm kind of furious at the fact. I think he should have been dead a long time ago. The man was an insane lunatic who needed to die. And the fact that they kept it a secret is bullshit in and of itself.
Yeah, and he lived many years after he went to Argentina. I mean, he built a mansion, and he lived in a Bavarian-style mansion at the foot of the Andes. He had his own chef that made him German meals that he loved for every meal. He had his old lady beside him that he loved, and he was still the Führer to all his people. You know what I mean? The
Still is today, too.
Yeah, the German population that lived there, that had immigrated, loved the man still and treated him as if he was a god on earth. So it's not even like he lived the rest of his days in hiding. I mean, he was living it up, you know? I'm sure he couldn't go out and make public speeches so everybody knew he was there. But I mean, he was not suffering by any means. He was living in luxury and lived out the rest of his days in peace and happiness after all that death and destruction that he caused, you know? It's a damn shame.
It's disgusting to even think that they would have allowed it to go that far.
And for all the listeners, I'm going to be, I've already shared the document with Eric, and I'm going to be putting that document on the Revolution broadcast page on Facebook, and I will be putting that document into the YouTube video of this show when it gets done, so that you can all see for yourselves that I'm not making this up. This is an FBI document. I gave you the file number. You can look it up yourself if you'd like. But I will be putting a copy of that in with the YouTube show so you can actually see it for yourself, because it'll blow your mind.
Yeah, and I just want to point out to those idiots out there who want to say that the Holocaust never happened. If you pull your head out of your ass long enough to see the light of day, it happened. I don't care what you want to think or what you want to say. It was real. I mean, you've heard about it, right, Hersh? You've heard those people say, "Oh, the Holocaust was fake. It never happened."
Yeah, that's usually I love conspiracy theories. I mean, no matter how crazy they are, I love them. I love to listen to them. I love to learn about them. I love to research them. And in cases such as this one here with Hitler, I love to solve them. You know what I mean? I love it when it all comes together and you can finally say definitively, this is what happened. It's no longer conspiracy. Now it's fact. We know now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's rare that actually happens, and this is beautiful. But with that, the whole thing of did the Holocaust happen, or was it just made up? I've heard that conspiracy theory a lot of times, and I think it's disgusting because they're ignoring the eyewitness testimony of tens of thousands of survivors that were in the camps. You know what I mean? That lost people. They saw it happen. They were in it. It happened to them. You know what I mean? So to say that it didn't happen is beyond ludicrous. I mean, conspiracy is cool when there's evidence that points to the fact that the conspiracy theory might be true. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But when you have people that literally lived through it, you know, that were rescued from the camps, and they're still here, you know, and then to claim that it didn't happen when somebody could say, oh, yeah, it did, I was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, it's ludicrous.
If you don't even want to believe the Jewish people that survived, talk to the soldiers who fought in World War II, which ones are left, that is. Like, my grandpa used to tell me stories, and I'm sorry, people, it was a real thing. It really happened, and I think you're about half a dumb shit if you don't think it did. It's insanity.
It's a real insensitive and real horrible thing to tell somebody that lived through the Holocaust that they're making it up, that it didn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because of all the things they can make up, that would be what you think they'd make up?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can say, I don't know, that's fishy, I don't know if I believe that, but something as horrifyingly bad as the Holocaust, I mean, how can you tell somebody, I mean, I've seen the pictures.
Uh-huh.
I've seen the pictures of the people in the camps. You know what I mean? They were so thin, all you could see was bone.
Yep.
And we have all of the records from the Germans and the Japanese, because even though the Germans were the ones doing the Holocaust, the Japanese did some real dirty shit in World War II also, which I'll talk about here in a couple minutes. But I've seen all of the medical records of the experiments that they did and all the crazy shit that Nazis were up to. You know, and they were using the Jews as human guinea pigs. And I've seen the evidence. I know it happened. You know? So yeah, that's one conspiracy theory that I'll never jump on board and endorse in any way, because I mean, I'm a guy that I do the research, you know? Whenever I hear one of these crazy stories, I do the research and I find the truth. And if the truth is not there to be found, which on some of these conspiracy theories it's just not, I can get a pretty good idea of whether it happened or not, or what happened, by the evidence that we do have, you know? And every bit of evidence I've seen points to the fact that the Holocaust did in fact happen, and that it wasn't made up. So yeah, I don't endorse that theory at all.
No, I think it's crap. That'd be like someone telling us Native Americans that the Trail of Tears never happened.
And I'm sure somebody will one day. I'm sure they will, you know? People are dumb, man. I hate to say that, but it's true. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just dumb as hell, and they don't know anything. I mean, you see it all the time when you watch the TV, you know? You'll see, like, on the Tonight Show and those kind of shows, they'll do that man on the street thing where they go out and they ask people simple questions that anybody should be able to answer, and they don't have any idea, you know? Just no idea at all. I mean, people can't name the Speaker of the House, you know? And the Speaker of the House is the third person in line for the presidency. If the president dies and the vice president dies in some weird freak accident, then the Speaker of the House will be the next president. But a majority of Americans can't even tell you who the hell it is. Or they probably can't even tell you that that's the person that'll take over if the president and vice president dies. You know, they have no idea. I mean, just simple things, you know? They can name 10 beers off the top of their head, no problem. but they can't tell you the Ten Commandments. You know what I mean? It's crazy the stuff that people know versus the things that they have no idea about.
Well, like we say on our shows, on all of our shows all the time, never underestimate the power of stupid. Because it shocks me that's one thing I can say. It does surprise me. What the government does never surprises me anymore. But stupid.
And you know what's sad, bro? Is you can give the evidence,
I'm still going to be those idiots. Yep.
Yeah, you can present just mountains of evidence and tell everybody exactly what happened and prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, like I've done 100 times on 100 different things. And you're still going to have those people that say, no, that's not the way it happened. You know what I mean? And it's like, but look, dude, I'm showing you. Right here is all the evidence. Here's a stack of official documents. Right here it is. Here is the smoking gun. It's right there. Nope, that's not what happened. You're racist. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you people?
We're hearing that again today with the whole Hillary thing. About people not believing, that she didn't do this or she didn't. The evidence is right there in front of you, and we still get people, again, the power of stupid, showing us its true form, that say, oh, no, it's not true. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and the sad thing is you can never know what to believe, because you could have a pretty good idea, you think, of what's going on, and then everything will just change on you,
Yeah.
Because our government is so untrustworthy that you have no idea, I mean, this thing with Hillary, it's one of those rare occasions where she is completely and totally busted because they have her own emails, They basically have her own confession that she wrote down in email form, and all of her people did, where they are emailing back and forth talking about this stuff. And at the beginning of this thing, they even admitted that those WikiLeaks emails were hers. So they can't even say now that, oh, no, it's not her emails, they've been tampered with. They can't say that because they already admitted that they were right. You know what I mean? They weren't arguing that the emails were wrong or that they were forged or anything like that. They were trying to say the Russians are the ones that hacked it and gave them. They weren't saying they were wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. Like, you have people now talking about pardoning Hillary Clinton. All her supporters are saying that Obama should pardon her before he leaves office. Well, let me ask you a question. If she didn't do anything wrong, what the hell does she need a pardon for?
It doesn't make any. These people like to say certain things didn't happen, or this didn't happen, but then they want to make excuses when it does happen, or try to come up with something they can do to forgive it. And I'm sorry, if this was what's funny though? If this was anybody else, how many of these people would stand behind them through all this? I mean, you bring this Hitler thing. Do you know how many people, when they find out that he was still alive, how many people are going to sit there? And I'm curious to see the level of stupid that comes from this paper, and to see how many people are going to go, oh, well, he lived peacefully and quietly after that, so we should just let it go. Yeah, okay, well, let me throw this at you, you nimrods. He lived peacefully and quietly after murdering and slaughtering and basically genocide. Millions and millions of innocent people. Women, children. It didn't matter. And you want to just say, let's just forget it?
Yeah, well, see, unfortunately, because so much time has passed and he's already dead, really it does become just an academic issue at this point, because there's really nothing you can do at this point about it. It's done. He lived his life out, and he lived. We can be pissed off, but it's not really going to change anything. And all we can really do is get the information out there to people so that they know the truth. And I think if it hurts anybody, it hurts the reputation and integrity of our government and our FBI, because it shows that not only are they doing it now with Comey and Clinton, right? Not only is it crooked now, but it was crooked then. This is back in the beginning, man. This is back in the early years, So that means that they've been crooked this whole damn time. And that's a sad statement to make about something that we're supposed to believe in. You know what I mean? It's our government. It's our FBI. I know the CIA is crooked as hell.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's their job, is to be crooked as hell. To pretend that they were straight and narrow would be insane, because that's what they get paid to do, is to kill people and to spy and lie. That's what they do. But all of it, man, it's all just a joke. It really is. It's all bullshit, wrapped with a pretty little ribbon, a red, white, and blue ribbon. And we're all supposed to be like, yay, America, the greatest country on earth, and all this stuff, which I feel that way. I love this country. But our government is bullshit. They lie to us constantly. I mean, what's next, man? What are we going to find out next that they've lied about? I'm waiting for the JFK documents to come out.
No, yeah, because we know damn well that wasn't who they said it was who shot him.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't seem like it. I think Johnson had him killed. I think the CIA wanted the war in Vietnam, and Kennedy was not going to give it to him. Kennedy was about to pull everybody out of Vietnam, because it wasn't a war yet at that point. They just had a small group in there. And he was going to pull them out and walk away from it. And that was the CIA's baby, and they wanted it. So I think they colluded with Johnson, his vice president, to have him murdered. And then Johnson took over, and he gave them their war. That's what I think happened. And that's what a lot of the evidence points to that happened. But I can't prove it, because those documents are not out.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be out, but now they've reclassified them for another so many years, so we're going to have to wait again until everybody's dead that even knew anything about anything.
And it's funny, though. We don't even need those documents to know that guy, even if it was the government, we don't even need those documents to show us that it wasn't him. If you watch how they have dissected that shooting and where they said that he was sitting when he shot the president, unless his bullet magically turned and did like a 180 and then, turned again, which I've never in my life heard of unless it's been on a movie, there is no possible way he shot him.
And see, you used to be able to go to the actual sniper's nest in the window there, in the book depository, in the 6th floor. You used to be able to actually walk up to it and look out. They don't let you anymore. They barricaded it now. You can go up to the floor, but you can't get all the way to the window. But you used to be able to. But now you can't, because I guess they don't want people to walk up to that window and look and then realize, hell, I can't even see where Kennedy's limousine was from here. You know what I mean? That angle is so fucked. There's no way. This is bullshit. You know what I mean? They don't want you to see that, I guess. So they've made it now so where you can't actually get to the window. But like I said, with the Kennedy assassination, bro, I don't have any definitive proof that I can present where I can say this is what happened. Absolutely. I can tell you what I think happened. Yeah. And there is evidence that supports it, but I can't definitively say,
you can't say without a shadow of a doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the Hitler thing, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that he survived World War II. I know that to be true because I've seen the documents. You know what I mean? Yeah. I know that our FBI and our government knew he was alive and decided to do nothing. So that one is solved for me. I'll never wonder again if he survived, because I know now he did.
Well, I watched that show Finding Hitler. I've watched it a couple times, and they've shown some pretty hard proof on that too. Like, they've shown pictures of an older Hitler, and they dissected it using, how to use that computer algorithm with the face recognition thing, and it matched completely. And if you know anything about that stuff, you know that each person has a different facial structure. Even if your parents or your siblings, your facial structure is not the same. So for this picture they found, it was well after World War II, to match completely with Hitler's facial structure. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out.
Yeah, it would have been a pretty short show if I would have been the one putting that one on, huh?
Yeah, that would have, okay, 5 minutes, that's all you get. You're done.
It took us today 13 minutes into the show, and we had already solved the mystery.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do?
The Japanese, back to this. The Japanese were doing a lot of crazy shit during World War II as well. I mean, we talk about the Nazis and all the weird medical experiments they were doing on the Jews that they had at the concentration camps. And the Japanese were doing a lot of the same things. But see, the Japanese weren't doing it on Jews that they had prisoner. The Japanese were doing it on our guys, our troops that they had taken prisoner. They were doing medical experiments on them and experiments in torture, I'll say also, because they were experimenting with new ways to torture people and how much the human body could take before you died, and all kinds of horrible, ghastly things they were doing. And so that's another aspect to look at there, because Japan was allied with Germany. And what a lot of people don't know, they think that, Germany started killing Jews and America stood up and said, yes, we are America. We're going to put an end to this evil. And we went over there and kicked Hitler's ass. That is not what happened, people. We were going to stay out of it, basically. We were going to allow Hitler to murder as many Jews as his little German heart wanted to murder. We did not get into the war because Hitler was murdering Jews. England begged us repeatedly to get into the war, and we would not do it. And then we decided that we were going to start pressuring Japan and making it harder for them to get oil to turn into gasoline to fuel their society. And FDR pushed Japan to a point where Japan had two choices. They could either do nothing and their entire culture, country, economy, everything crumbles, or they could go to war and try to defeat the United States of America in order for us to stop what we're doing so that they could live again. I'm not saying that the Japanese were right, but what I'm saying is that they didn't just attack us out of the blue. There was reasons for it. They did the attack on Pearl Harbor in order to take out our Navy so that we would be easily defeated. That's what they thought. There's a lot that goes on with that too, because there's government documents that have proven that our government knew that the Japanese were coming to Pearl Harbor to attack. They listened to the radio chatter as they flew towards Pearl Harbor. FDR was well aware that the attack on Pearl Harbor was going to take place, and the decision was made to allow that attack to take place so that we could get involved in the war. Because at that time, the American people did not want to get involved in the war, and there was tremendous pressure on FDR and tremendous pressure on our government to not get into that war. So they needed an event that would change the mind of the American people, and that's what Pearl Harbor was. Pearl Harbor was basically a black flag event. It was not set up by the government necessarily, like not planned by the government, the attack, but they put the stuff into place to give the Japanese no choice but to attack. And then they moved all their stuff to one area there in Pearl Harbor, to where they were just made it a beautiful fat target for the Japanese that they couldn't resist. And then they knew when the Japanese were coming, and they warned nobody, so that it would be a devastating attack, and the American people would be so outraged that we would go to war. Now, this is backed up by multiple documents that have been released from the Freedom of Information Act releases. And you should definitely Google that and check that out, because that's some really interesting, horrifying reading to know that our government allowed that attack to happen to pull us into a war. And our history is really filled with this kind of stuff, And that's why it's always funny to me when people will talk about, this is a false flag, this is a false flag, this is a false flag, and everybody always calls them conspiracy theorists, and they say you're crazy. But if you really study your history, if you know your history, and you keep up with the releases that our government, the information our government releases from the Freedom of Information Act, then you'll see that there's been a lot of false flags in our history. You know, this is something they routinely do when they want to get us involved in a huge war, whether it's to make money, or in the case of 9/11, it's to take away as many of our freedoms as possible. There's always a reason the government does it, but over and over again in our history, it's been done. And I'm not at this point saying that 9/11 was a false flag, but I'm also not saying that it wasn't. There's a lot of evidence that makes you really question that. And maybe we'll do a show on that someday. But I'm not at this point ready to come out and say that 9/11 was a false flag attack. But I'm also not saying that the people that say that are crazy, because I've seen some of the evidence that they point to, and it is definitely intriguing. There is there. Now, what exactly it means, I don't know yet. I've got to do a lot more studying on that before I can really make an opinion of my own, because I'm not just going to come out and parrot what somebody else says. I do the research, and I try to find the truth first. So that might be a show in the future sometime, if I ever reach the point where I'm ready to make a judgment call on that either way, then maybe we'll do a show on that. But our history is filled with these false flag attacks, and it's sad, because you never know if you can trust your government. I mean, everybody always says the government's crooked, and it's kind of a joke, they laugh about it, but when you really start studying history and you start seeing what happened, and then you see what they tell you, it's scary stuff, man. It's stuff that really gives you pause and makes you think. I mean, we are lied to so much about our own history and about just key important things, that we should know. And it's sad, whether it's aliens or whether it's false flag attacks or whatever it is, it's always something that they're not telling us that isn't true. I mean, today is Thanksgiving, okay? So we'll talk about a little false narrative that's been spread about Thanksgiving. Everybody says, what we're taught is that Thanksgiving was a giant feast put on by the Pilgrims and the Indians, and that they had turkey and pie and all these wonderful things, and they all just kind of hung out. And that's really not what the first Thanksgiving was at all. First of all, the main meat course of the first Thanksgiving was venison. It was deer. It wasn't turkey. The first Thanksgiving was a meal that was put on basically by the Native Americans for the Pilgrims, where they brought corn, and they brought venison, and they brought some other vegetable stuff they had, and they brought popcorn, believe it or not. And they showed the Pilgrims what popcorn was and how to cook it, and they were really amazed by popcorn, the Pilgrims were, because they had never seen it before. So that is what the first Thanksgiving meal was, and the reason for it was because the Native Americans thought they were helping the Pilgrims, because these people couldn't even feed themselves. And if it wasn't for the Native Americans, they never would have made it in America. They would have died off, because the Native Americans fed them, and they taught them how to grow corn, which is something that helped them to survive. And then the Pilgrims turned around and ended up killing a bunch of them off. But that's just kind of the way they always do things. I don't know why, but they always do that. But it wasn't like some big, wonderful, feast where the Pilgrims were showing these savages what civilized life was and what abundance was, what civilization could bring abundance. That wasn't the message, okay? The first Thanksgiving was basically the Native Americans saving the Pilgrims' ass and teaching them how to feed themselves, basically, and providing them with fish and with venison and with corn and that kind of thing. Because winter was getting ready to come, and they wanted to give them some supplies for winter and give them a nice big feast as a token, as a welcome. I hope you guys, are doing all right. We're your friends, kind of deal. You know what I mean? And then it turns out in history we learned that the Pilgrims were definitely not friends to the Native Americans.
No, I would say.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
I would say the Pilgrims were the savages. I'm sorry. You can say, oh, you're wrong. No. The Pilgrims were the savages, and if you look throughout history, the savages are usually the ones that come bearing a peace flag and do the most horrible things.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that were done to the Native Americans were really messed up, man. I mean, they would give them blankets that were infected with smallpox. And the Native Americans had never had a smallpox epidemic before. So they had no immunities built up to it. They had no way to fight it. They didn't know what the hell it was. It just swept upon the tribes like a plague from heaven. You know what I mean? It just destroyed them. And they would do that kind of thing, They would, later on in the West and in the Midwest, they actually put bounties on Indian scalps and on Indian ears, and depending on where you were was whether it was a scalp or an ear, but you would be paid so much money per scalp or per ear that you would bring back to the government official of Native American scalps or ears, and they did this as a way to try to kill them off. And the great buffalo hunts that they had, they literally hired teams of hunters that would go out, and their whole job was to shoot as many buffalo as possible. So they would shoot until they had absolutely no powder, no shot left, completely out. Then they'd go restock, come back and shoot more. I mean, they would literally shoot thousands of buffalo a day and just leave them lie. They didn't even take the meat or anything. They just killed them and let them fall and left them there for the birds to eat. And the reason they did that was because the bison, the American buffalo, was the primary source of food for all the different tribes. That's what they lived on.
Not just food. It was their source of clothing too, and
they
building
made
material.
They made shelter. They made everything out of the buffalo. I mean, it was a spiritual animal to them. And by killing off that creature, they were able to starve the Indians to the point to where they had to accept living on a reservation so that they could get food. That was the point. The government agreed to feed them if they would move to the reservations so that they could have all the land for themselves and they could settle it and make cities. And basically everything that we have in this country now is because we took it away from somebody else. And that's just the truth. I know that's not a very nice message to hear on Thanksgiving, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
We slaughtered the indigenous people here. We swindled them. We killed them. And we forced the survivors onto little barren areas of land where you can't even grow anything, and forced them basically to live on government assistance the rest of their life.
Yeah, and we're taught that, we discovered this country. I find that irritating in and of itself, because the statement discover means you find something no one else has seen or been to. So to say we discovered the country when there was already people here is just gross and disgusting. That's like me stealing a car and saying, oh no, I didn't steal it, I discovered it.
Yeah, if your neighbor has a really nice house, you just walk into his living room and you plant a flag in the middle of it and you say, I claim this house in the name of James, and you're fine if you follow the example.
Yeah, you discovered it. It's your house now. No, bull.
And this is another one of those situations that's purely academic at this point, because it's not like we're going back. America is the nation. It's got, millions over 300 million people living here now. Great cities, great infrastructure, all this stuff. So it's not like it's going to make any difference what the truth is, because it's not going back to the way it was. It never will.
No.
And there will never be any kind of meaningful reparations made to the native people. You know, they're not going to get their own state or anything like that. So it's another one of those arguments. It's just purely academic at this point. But I'm a big believer in truth, man. I've said that many, many times, and that's really what I believe in, you know? And I'm not going to pretend that what we did to the Native Americans was just, or was right, or was even decent. You know what I mean? It was horrifying. It was terrible. And that's just the truth, you know? I know because I am part Native American, and some of my ancestors were treated this way, you know? Some of my ancestors died on the Trail of Tears. So it was a terrible chapter in our history. And there's been a lot of terrible chapters in our history, unfortunately. But the great thing about America, I guess, is that we can learn from them, and we can be better. You know what I mean? That's what you have to do. You have to learn from your mistakes. You have to learn from your misdeeds, even, and try to be better people. You know, our government, on the other hand, is screwed. I mean, our government has been screwed for a long fucking time. It's just terrible.
The way you say it, the other government's just screwed.
It's the truth, man. It's terrible.
No, it is. It's completely true, but it's just funny to hear. You know, I just can't help but laugh because God knows you're so right. I mean, Jesus, if you, and it's not just American history, people. If you look up throughout mankind's history, it is completely screwed, and there's a lot of things that we as a human race have done that has been pretty disgusting and pretty vile. So, again, like James said, on this network, all we are is the truth. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree or not, at least you know we're shooting you straight and we don't have no hidden agenda. We're not here to throw smoke up your ass. We're just here to tell you the truth. Like it or not, just deal with it. It is what it is.
And it's a weird thing, because you have this duality with the United States of America to where it's people and it's veterans, you know, the people that serve, and the American people as a whole are good, you know? They are amazingly good. We are the only nation on earth that will go and fight a war to liberate another people and take nothing for ourselves, you know? We are the most charitable people on earth. Whenever we see somebody in need, we help, if it's in our power to help. We are a good and noble people. That's the truth. And then you have the other side of that coin, which is our government, which is duplicitous and sneaky and sometimes even evil, you know, some of the things they've done. And it's weird to think that a nation that has such good and noble people could allow themselves to be ruled by a group of people that are evil, that are the exact opposite of what they as a whole are. Okay? Now, I understand not every person is good in America. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying as a whole. You know, the founding principles that we were founded on, that are laid forth in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, are amazing. They are noble, they are honorable, they are the best form of government ever made. The problem is we don't follow that anymore. The Constitution is not followed by our government. It just simply isn't.
No.
I mean, according to the Constitution, the only power that the federal government has, it's only two things they're allowed to do, according to our Constitution. That is, to provide for the defense. You're talking military, you're talking wage war, you're talking security, and to regulate interstate commerce. That means if Virginia grows a bunch of tobacco and it wants to sell that tobacco to South Carolina, then the government acts as a middleman to regulate that trade and make sure it's good and make sure it's fair and set up the rules to do so. That's basically all they're allowed to do according to our Constitution. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say the government should have any role in our education system. So the whole entire Department of Education, unconstitutional, should be eliminated. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that our government should have any power over the way we treat the environment. So the entire EPA, unconstitutional, should be eliminated. Nowhere in the Constitution does it state that our government should have any role in our health care. So Obamacare, unconstitutional, should be eliminated. Nowhere in our Constitution does it say that the government should regulate how oil is drilled. Goodbye, Department of Energy. Don't need you. See you later. You're unconstitutional. I could go on for another 3 hours listing all the things our government does that constitutionally they're not allowed to do. You see, our Constitution set it up so our federal government can only do two things. And the 10th Amendment of the United States states that any powers not directly given to the federal government in this document will go to the states. So what that means is that all those things that I just mentioned that the federal government is doing, plus hundreds of more that they're not supposed to be doing, those things are supposed to be handled by your state governments. That way, if you don't like what your state is doing, you can move to another state where things are a little bit more to your liking. That is a beautiful way to do things. That's the way it was supposed to be done. And it makes complete and total sense. And I will give you a great example for all you liberal people that just can't seem to understand the Constitution. Let me explain to you so that you can definitely understand this, okay? Let's take California, for example, because that is the bastion of liberal. California and New York are the two bastions of liberal thought. They're the big population centers that always go Democrat, okay? There's a couple other states, but those are the main two, the big ones. Okay, let me speak to the people of California. And then people in New York, you can listen to this. It's the same crap for you. The thing that makes it great is that you are allowed in California to make whatever dumb laws you want to make to take away the freedoms of your people, as long as you're not taking away the stuff that's listed in the Bill of Rights, okay? But you can make all kinds of dumb laws that say that you have to do this or you can't do that or whatever it is, okay? Now, the people of Texas can also make any laws they want for their people. Now, California, you would not want Texas making your laws, would you? Because Texas is a very conservative state. So you would not want the people of Texas making the laws that you were forced to live under. You would want that done in California. And Texas, the same exact thing. You would not want California making your laws for you. That's why the power, all these different things were supposed to be done by the states. So if you are a very liberal person and you live in Texas, and you don't like the conservative laws of Texas, then California's over there. You can just move your happy ass right over to California and be with all the other tree huggers, and then you all can have your liberal dream there.
Tree huggers.
Now, if you're a real conservative fella and you live in California and you don't like all the crazy liberal laws they have in California, then you can take your happy ass down to Texas where they have laws that more suit the things that you like. Okay? That's how our Constitution was set up. That's how our country was supposed to be. So that you could literally vote with your feet. If you did not like the laws of your state, you could move to a state that had laws that you liked a lot more. If you're a person that wants recreational marijuana, you could move to Colorado, because Colorado has recreational marijuana. But if you live in a state that doesn't, you could move there if you want. That's great. The problem is when the federal government starts taking all these different things that is supposed to be done by the state, and now they're doing it on a federal level, that means it's nationwide, man. There's nowhere to go. You know? If in California they decide that you're not allowed to pee outside or something, who knows, whatever. Here's a great one for you. You're not allowed to collect rain in some of these liberal areas. Like, you can't have a rain barrel outside your house to collect rain in. You're not allowed to do it.
There goes my weekend plans.
So if you're somebody that wants to do that, and you live in California, and they pass a law that says you can't collect rainwater, then you could just move someplace where they allow you to. But if it becomes a federal law through the EPA that you're not allowed to collect rainwater, then it doesn't matter what state you live in, you're not allowed to collect rainwater. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. So that explains why the 10th Amendment is so important, and why states' rights is so important. But they have made it into something terrible. And see, that's what they did when they changed the way senators were elected as well. Okay? Originally in the Constitution, you had the people in the House of Representatives were elected by the people voting in elections. Okay? Every 2 years, the people vote for their representative for their district, and all those people go to Washington, D.C., and they make up the House of Representatives in Congress. Now, the senators, they were appointed by the state legislatures, okay? So the senators were not voted on by the people in the beginning of our country. That's how the Constitution has it set up. So the state legislature is the one that appoints the 2 senators from the state, not direct vote by the people. The reason that's important is because that ensures that state's 2 votes in the Senate will be cast according to the needs and the interests of the state that they come from. Because if your state legislature is appointing them, then their whole purpose there is to look after the needs of the state. Okay? That's the way it's supposed to be. But what they did was the Democrats pushed to get a constitutional amendment passed that would turn the senators, their election from appointments over to elections by the people. So now people vote for senators. So now the senators from each state no longer represent the needs and interests of the state. They represent the party that they're in and whatever that party wants to do nationally. So you've gotten to a point now where states don't have a whole lot of rights anymore in the government like they're supposed to. Our country was not founded to be one country. It was founded to be a confederation of a bunch of different states that came together and gave the federal government power in times of war and stuff like that. And that's not what it is anymore. That's a lot of what the Civil War was fought about, was states' rights. Because the federal government was encroaching on states' rights, and they were trying to make the states do what they wanted to do. And it had a lot to do with trade tariffs and with taxes levied on cotton and tobacco, which were the 2 major exports from the South. A lot of that stuff had to do with the Civil War. It wasn't just slavery. That's where states' rights kind of went downhill, is after the Civil War. Because after the South was defeated, the Union had crushed that argument of states' rights, and they made sure that it never gained traction again. If you even talk about states' rights today, then people call you racist. And I mean, it's not a racist idea. It's the 10th Amendment of the United States of America. You know what I mean? It's in our Constitution that the states can determine their own laws and their own things. And there's just so much that the government does that is unconstitutional and is not supposed to be allowed. And if the judicial branch, if all the judges would actually take their oaths seriously and stick to the Constitution when they make their rulings, then you wouldn't have this problem. But see, what happens is the Democrats elect people that agree with them, the Republicans elect people that agree with them, and there's not that many of them anymore that are actually going by the Constitution. They're just going by their ideology that they believe in. And so the whole system is, well, like I said, it's just screwed. The whole thing is screwed.
Pretty much.
See, I don't think judges should be in for life, and not all judges are, but a lot of those appointments, especially like Supreme Court, of the different Supreme Courts, and then the Supreme Court of the United States, and a lot of these appellate courts, a lot of those guys are in there for life. You know, they have lifetime appointments, so there's really not a lot you can do about it. It's not like when they get in there and they start making these crazy rulings that don't go by the Constitution. It's not like you can just not vote for them next election, because they're not elected. You know what I mean? They're appointed, and then they have a life term to where you can't really get rid of them. It takes an act of Congress, you know, a majority in Congress, to actually get rid of one of these judges. But I think we really need to start cleaning this system up, man. And I have hope that's going to happen. You know, that Trump has run on that of draining the swamp and cleaning shit up, and I really hope that he does. And believe me, if he doesn't start cleaning up the corruption and doing those things, then even though I was a Trump supporter, I will definitely be talking about it on the radio. You know what I mean? I will hold his feet to the fire over it, because I'm not going to allow him to say one thing and then go out and do a whole different thing and not say something about it, you know?
Yeah.
But I got to give him the benefit of the doubt right now. There's a lot of reporting going on that he's not going to do this and he's not going to do that, but he's not even in office yet. So I'm going to allow him to take office. I'm going to allow him to have some time to actually do some of the things he said, and we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? But believe me, if he turns his back on the people that voted for him and doesn't do the things he said he was going to do, then we'll definitely be talking about it.
Yeah. I know we will. We always do.
Yep. So I want to tell everybody happy Thanksgiving, and thank you guys for listening. Thank you for listening on the replay if you're listening there. If you're watching the YouTube video, thank you for that. Please like and subscribe. And Eric, why don't you tell everybody what's coming up this week for the different shows?
A whole lot of shit and shit. No. Let's see. Tomorrow is our major show, Revolution Talk Radio, where it'll be me, Hershey, and Gage. I really don't know what we have planned for tomorrow, to be honest with you people. I think we're just going to be...
We were doing the Thanksgiving Veterans thing.
Yes, okay, good. See, thank God one of us remembers. Sorry, everybody, it's just been a long week for me.
You've just eaten too much damn turkey today. That's what happened.
I'm telling you. I'm fat as hell right now. I can't even fit in my clothes. Yeah, we're going to do a special Veterans Thanksgiving thing, and look forward to that because it's going to be good. We do a lot of veteran stuff here, and that's only because they are the best of us. Then Saturday is We're Screwed with Old Boy and Ant-Man, and I don't know if Tony Ninefingers is going to be there or not, but if not, they said they want me in there on that one, so. And they're going to talk about their usual stuff, which is everything. Then we have Sunday is Politically Incorrect, and I think for that one we're going to discuss a little more of this Dakota thing happening because now the UN has gotten involved. So Sunday, look forward to that. Which brings us to Monday and our show Common Ground. Now, I'm not going to give you any spoilers for this show. I'm never going to tell you what it's going to be about and what guests we're going to have on and try to bring together and unite. But just look forward to it because if you watch the premiere episode or listen to it. I'd watch. What the hell am I talking? Too much turkey. Blah.
Well, they could have watched it on YouTube because I put it up there. It is on the YouTube channel. For everybody that wants to catch the show that didn't get to catch it, go to my YouTube channel, James Hershey Jr., type that into search, and pull up my YouTube channel. And the first episode of Common Ground, the video is up on the YouTube channel. And it was an amazing, powerful show, man. I thought this was going to be a really cool idea, you know, when it was pitched, and I thought, man, that's a good idea. And we got together and we figured the show out, what we wanted to do. And since there's so much stuff going on with this election and you know, everybody yelling racism and all this shit all the time, we decided that the first episode of Common Ground was going to be about racism, about race. We were going to get a white guy and a black guy and put them together, and we were going to try to find the common ground and really discuss, you know, the problems between the two, the fears that each has, the impressions and everything. And we did that. We had me and we had Ant-Man on. Ant-Man from We're Screwed. And it was an amazing discussion. And it was truly a powerful, powerful show. And I've had a lot of feedback from it. And people really seemed to like that show. And they thought it was amazing. And I have to concur and agree with them. It was a really good show. So definitely, if you guys haven't caught that yet, go to the YouTube channel and check out that show, man, because it was amazing. And I guarantee you that you will love it.
Yeah, and for the people that don't know, when we do that show, I introduce people, and then I let them talk. And I let them work. And then at some point, I jump in and lighten the mood a little bit, try to get the mood a little lighter. So that's the whole point behind the show, is to bring people together that wouldn't normally be together. Even if they don't agree, there's got to be something there that makes them say, hey, we do have something in common. So just tune in for that. That's Sunday. Or no, that's Monday. Hot damn, I'm lost. Too much turkey. Alright, let's see. Tuesday is Style Chic with Nikki and her new co-host Rhonda. So that'll be happening, and believe me, they're going to be discussing a lot of stuff with Christmas right around the corner and shopping. Because believe me, they do a lot of shopping is a thing. Which brings us to Wednesday with the Splatter Hour with Gage. Now I know for a few weeks it hasn't been happening, but he was sick for a while, and last week he got caught up in something and he couldn't help it. So look forward to Wednesday, where he'll be talking about The Walking Dead and zombies in general. And then it brings us back to Thursday with Mr. Hirsch. And what do you got planned for next week?
I'm not entirely sure yet, to be honest with you. There's several ideas that I'm bouncing around of shows that I would love to do. I love the Wild West. Everybody who knows me knows that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking about doing, you know, a show on Billy the Kid. And there was been several people that have claimed to be Billy the Kid, that he wasn't shot by Pat Garrett, and that he lived on into old age. And the most notable was Brushy Bill Roberts. And so I thought about doing a show about that. That would be an interesting, fun show. And there's a couple other ideas that I've been bouncing around in my head. So I'll definitely let everybody know a couple days ahead of time what the show is going to be about, and we'll announce it on one of the other shows, and we'll put it up on the page and all that kind of stuff. But as far as right now goes, I don't have a definite topic for the show. But believe me, there will definitely be a topic every week, because I've got dozens of these that I really want to do, and it's really just a matter of figuring out which one I want to do next week. So that won't be too much of a problem.
Alright, so you heard it there. And, what was I going to say? You know, sorry people, if anybody knows, after Thanksgiving, you're fat, you're overstuffed, and all you want to do is die. Well, that's where I'm at right now. I'm at the death stage of Thanksgiving.
I had such an easy Thanksgiving this year, dude. It was amazing. Like, usually, Thanksgiving is 2 days of cooking. Okay? Because in the old days, we would get we'd go into town and we'd get the rescue building, and there'd be a couple hundred people that would come, because we have a lot of family here, and I would be cooking for 2 days to cook enough food for all these people, and so that would be my normal Thanksgiving. And then when Grandpa got sick, it turned into a family dinner at my uncle's house where my grandpa was staying, because he couldn't be at the house by himself anymore. So then it was a lot easier. It was a one-day thing where me and Mom would just cook Thanksgiving dinner for, 10 people maybe. So it was a lot easier than it was before. And Grandpa has passed, so now it's so simple. I didn't even make a Thanksgiving dinner this year, and I didn't last year either. All we did was, when it got to be dinner time, I went down to Cracker Barrel, and I picked up their Thanksgiving dinner. It was like $62, something like that, for 4 people, four meals, and brought it home, and I hung out and watched Netflix, and ate turkey and stuffing, and sweet potatoes, and green beans, and pumpkin pie, and the whole nine. And it was so easy, and I have absolutely no dishes to wash, because I just, threw the container away, threw the plastic silverware away, and I still got my Thanksgiving dinner. I didn't spend all day in the kitchen. It was a lovely, lovely day.
Yeah, see,
Go ahead.
I didn't do any of that either. I just, for those that know Jewish people, my fiance's family completely Jewish, and it's like going to a Mexican family or an Italian family. All you fucking do is eat. I mean, again, today we got there was cheese and crackers and carrots, and then there was jumbo shrimp, and that's even before we sat down to dinner. And then we sat down to eat dinner, and there was turkey, there was pot roast, there was stuffing and sweet potato pie with marshmallows and salad, and oh my God, and then right after that it was dessert, and there was like 3 or 4 different frickin' desserts to choose from. Oh my dear Lord, I was like, how much can you people eat?
And then the funniest part was we were talking before the show, and after all of that feast, right, he leaves, he's going back home so that we can do the show. And his old lady is like, hey, you want to go to Cinnabon and get a cinnamon roll?
God damn. I'm like, no, I can't even food right now. Fuck food. I'm on it. And you know what sucks? I gotta go to training tomorrow for my nursing, and my teacher's talking about bringing pizza. And I'm like, geez, come on, dude. I don't even want to eat tomorrow.
It's funny because it's like it's a whole different thing, man. It's like too much. You know what I mean? It's just too much food. Like, probably let's go back in time, okay? It's Hell Week. You're laying on the beach, right? The waves are crashing over you. You're cold. You maybe slept 20 minutes in the last couple days, and you've eaten very little, because anybody knows about that. They give you food, but you have literally no time to eat it. It's just shovel, throw in the trash, go. So you haven't had a lot of food, and I bet you're laying in that cold water, and you're just imagining the kind of feast that you had tonight, just salivating, thinking, oh, how wonderful would this be? And then now it's like you have all this food, and you're just like, oh, I don't even want to eat. It's terrible. I'm so full.
Yeah. Well, it's fine when you're young, because, you can eat all day and all night, and you don't have to worry about it. But when you get up there in years, and you're just like, yeah, no. Or when you're poor, like me and Hershey were when we were growing up, and your dinner and lunch and breakfast consist of ramen and potatoes. You're like, damn, what I wouldn't give for some nice, pot roast. But when it actually happens to you, oh, sweet God. It's just not fun, people. I don't recommend it.
You know what I never did? Like when you grow up the way we grew up, and then you get a little bit of money, and then you get to see how other people live, and like for me, it's food. Like when I go out to a nice place, right, and they have gourmet food, I can't eat it. I can't eat this crap. I mean, first of all, the servings are so small they're almost microscopic. And some of the food is disgusting. I don't know how these people... Some of the shit they eat, dude, is like bait. You know what I mean? To me, it just looks like bait. It's like, man, I bet you if I put that on a hook, that I could catch me a nice fish. You know? I don't see how these people eat this stuff. To me, I still love a good burger. You know, give me a good bacon cheeseburger, man. Give me a cheesesteak. Give me a pizza, man. That's what I'm into.
You're literally going to make me throw the fuck up. That's what's going to happen right now.
That'd be funny as hell.
I'm halfway there now. You know, I got to get up in the morning and go to work. And, oh, my dear God. I swear, if one person... if one person mentions food tomorrow, I'm going to puke right on them. I swear. It's not even funny. Oh, my God. I don't know how people do it, and I'm done till Christmas. I swear to God, I'm not gonna eat nothing until fucking Christmas. I'm on a strike. Fuck food.
Sure you are. Your fat ass will be eating tomorrow.
Oh, I know. You know me. I'm gonna come home. I'm gonna rape the shit out of a cheesecake after I drop a hot load. Oh God.
Okay, so the people that are listening now, thank you guys so much, and the people that are going to be listening later, thank you. And definitely tune in every Thursday, guys, because I got a lot of these shows planned, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff. Tonight was kind of a weird night because the show that I had planned was going to be examining all these different conspiracy theories on whether Hitler survived and where he went. There's a lot of nutty ones, man. And I was going to go through all these different ones. And then in the research for the show this week, I was like, well, shit. Now I know exactly what actually happened. I don't have to, you know what I mean? So then it just seemed kind of silly to go through a bunch of conspiracy theories at that point that I knew weren't true when I had the evidence of the real thing in my hands. So sometimes that'll happen. You know, sometimes we'll actually find the truth. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, because now you all know. You know, now that question has been answered. And that's a wonderful thing. It makes it a little harder for me as a host because I have an hour show planned, and now my show is 13 minutes of actual information that I can, you know, realistically give you guys that I know to be true. And then all that other stuff is pointless at that point because now we know the truth. But like I said, that's a great thing. But check out all these shows because I got some really cool ones planned for you. There's stuff that's interesting. There's stuff that's shocking. There's stuff that I guarantee you didn't know about our history and some of the people that played a part in it. One thing I learned on Common Ground when I was speaking with Ant-Man, and we were discussing how a lot of black people just don't know the history of the amazing things that were done by black people in our history. I was talking to him about how there were a lot of black patriots during the Revolutionary War, people that fought alongside George Washington that were black men and were free, you know, and that stuff's not really taught in school, and people just don't know that stuff. I know that stuff because I read this stuff all the time. I research like crazy. I was always taught that if you don't know something, then look it up. And then once I look that question I have up, that leads to 3 or 4 new questions. And then I look those up, which lead to 3 or 4 new questions. And next thing you know, I'm on a subject that's not even related to the original subject, but I've learned so much. So there's a lot of stuff that I've found in my life and in my researches that I had no idea about. And a lot of it is super interesting. So I think I want to do some shows in the future. I did one already on Bass Reeves, who was the first black U.S. Deputy Marshal and was the inspiration behind the Lone Ranger. I did a show on him already for the Writer's Block, but I think that I want to do some other shows on different black people in history. I'd like to do one on the Revolutionary War and how much of a part black people played in that, because that was one thing that was surprising to me when I learned about it. And there was really a lot of black people that did a lot of amazing things. Did you know that Paul Revere, you all remember Paul Revere's ride, hearing about that? He rode through, the British are coming, the British are coming. Well, what not a lot of people know is he wasn't the only rider. They sent riders off in every direction. And one of those riders was a black man. And I'd like to talk about him, and I'd like to talk about some of these other amazing people in history. And because I believe that the African-American people, and, I don't like that term, African-American. I think it's silly. I was talking to Ant-Man about that on the show. But the black people, they've had a lot of their history stolen from them, And I don't think that's right. So I'd like to do some shows in the future on different black patriots and some of the amazing people that we don't get to learn about in school. So I'll start planning those shows too, and they'll be coming in the future. So definitely keep tuned in, man. And once again, I just want to tell you guys I love you, and thank you so much for all the support. And I hope that this show was entertaining to you, and I hope that you enjoy the Writer's Block, and I hope you keep tuning in. And please check out all of our other shows. And until the next time I talk to you, which will be tomorrow on Revolution Talk Radio, I love you guys, and thank you, and stay positive, and love your life.